Okay, you're not going to believe this story. Coming up, a record that changed everything. Because it was so fresh, so impactful, it didn't sound like anything on the radio at the time. The band's co-founder, he's going to tell the story of this song that was a crossover hit on 3 major charts, but that's just one part of it. This band, they suddenly became one of the biggest, the hottest in the world. They're up for Record of the Year. They won Album of the Year against the Beatles. They became the only band to have 3 straight number 2 hits. Their album, it hits number 1. It sells millions of copies. And they're banned from touring in America at the time because the US government won't give the singer a green card. So they allegedly blackmailed the band that they'll comply if they'll go on a tour behind the Iron Curtain. Hear the unbelievable story of this become a major documentary next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember playing Pitfall or Donkey Kong on the Atari or in the arcade, you're going to dig this throwback channel of musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now to the channel so you never miss an episode of our daily features. You'll click the bell so that you make sure you know when it's coming out. Make sure to check us out on Patreon as well. You can become an insider. We have full interviews going up there. And this is awesome. So it's time for another edition of our series, Revelations. This is one of my favorite things that we do on here. It's where artists reveal rare stories about their greatest songs and their greatest albums. It's a deep dive of legendary accounts that you just won't find anywhere else. Now, in this installment of Revelations, we have a cool episode here. It's a story of rock and roll espionage, if you will. The story of a song that the band never took seriously. It was written as sort of a joke. It's become one of the biggest songs ever. In 1969, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, they became one of the hottest bands in the world. They had 3 straight number 2 hits. Nobody had ever done that. You Made Me So Very Happy.
You made me so very happy.
Today's featured song, Spinning Wheel.
Let the spinning wheel spin. You got no money.
And the song, And When I Die.
And when I die, and when I'm gone, there'll be...
Their self-titled album, it hit number 1. It actually won a Grammy over the Beatles' Abbey Road. This was a completely fresh sound with the Take No Prisoners voice of David Clayton Thomas, one of the best. He's got one of my favorite voices ever. Of course, a stellar horn section, along with jazz drummer Bobby Columby, the band's co-founder and today's guest on the show. This band was so big, the sales for brass instruments went through the roof after this. It became cool. This band was on fire.
Drop all your troubles by the riverside.
Then something happened that would not only destroy their momentum, but it would pull the band apart. Due to a green card issue, which allegedly came from protesting the Vietnam War, Canadian singer David Clayton Thomas wasn't allowed to tour with the band in the US for a time. The situation was resolved pretty quickly. Then all of a sudden there's an announcement that Blood, Sweat, and Tears will become the first American band to perform behind the Iron Curtain. They're going to do concerts in Yugoslavia, Romania, and Poland. It was a tour sponsored by the US State Department. That was sort of a thing back then. Many young people in America, including band members of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, were outspoken and critical of the Nixon administration and the Vietnam War at the time. So this Iron Curtain tour, it seems to be a very strange decision by the band. Now, when they returned from the Iron Curtain tour, the band became victim of the culture war that was polarizing America at the time, very much like today, and the band's fans turned on them. It's a subject of an upcoming documentary. But up next, band co-founder, producer, drummer Bobby Columby tells the story of this and their biggest hit, Spinning Wheel.
What goes up must come down.
Including the fact that this was a song that no one took really very seriously. They were surprised when it was such a smash, as well as a strange story of the rise and fall of this band. Did the powers that be allegedly blackmail singer David Clayton Thomas and the band to get him to do this tour? Why did the band lose fan support when they returned? What the hell happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears? That's actually the name of the documentary, and the story is next from Bobby. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the brand of glasses I always wear. Zenni is amazing because you can design your own pair of glasses, what looks great on you, and you can do a virtual try-on at their website before you purchase. You can see what you look like. You can add amazing features for up to 80% off regular retail prices. All you do is click on this info button up here or on the link below to get the POR deal. Make sure to click on that. Bobby Columby, co-founder of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Spinning Wheel, one of my favorite songs of all time. It went to #1 on the AC charts, but then it went to the R&B charts too. I mean, this was a crossover song.
Catch a painted pony, let the spinning wheel spin.
Well, such an innovative jazzy arrangement. Like, first time you heard the song when David brought it in, what did you think? I mean, tell me about that moment.
It was silly. I didn't get it. I mean, I as I said earlier, it sounded very familiar to me because I heard the verse melody many times before, and the arrangement I was sort of very involved with. Not that I notated anything, but I kind of guided it in a direction, and it was just fun. It was just really fun. The fact that it ultimately became the defining song of my band is kind of crazy.
Someone's waiting just for you.
Right.
Who knew?
I think the lyrics are cool. They're karmic lyricism.
It has no particular meaning. David brought it in. No, those were the days when people were doing a lot of drugs and acid and, and I think that's kind of where that thing, you'd have to ask David, but I think that's what came out of his being at that time.
Well, I mean, it's nominated for Record of the Year, Song of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
I know that David was inspired by a line in the Joni Mitchell song, The Circle Game.
Round and round in the circle game.
And he's saying the song written in an age, like you said, psychedelic imagery. Don't get too caught up because everything comes full circles. It was kind of what he said about it. But a lot of people also read religious connotations into it.
Well, they were doing that with everything. I mean, it could be anything. And they say, play it backwards. Listen to what they're saying. It's the devil.
What goes up must come down.
Musically, it's Lulu's back in town. But Randy Newman writes 1941. In 1941, So I sort of heard that before, and we're just doing it. But there was all this. So guys, what are you? Jazz or rock? What are you? And I just thought, man, let's do this song. He's the new singer. Let's do it. It'd be fun. And the entire arrangement is just this bringing in everything under but the kitchen sink.
Did you find the directing sign on the...
It starts with this with a drum practice figure, which is like it's just like a practice thing. So we start with that, with a roll, and then I play a cowbell.
Spinning wheel.
Which has nothing to do with anything on earth. And and then we do the song.
Someone's waiting just for you.
I remember Fred Lipsius was in my mom's apartment, at the time where I lived, and we had a little piano, and he would just play all the time, and I'd go, try, oh no, use that, what, that, just, write that down, and no, that. So the joke to me was, what goes up, right? And the horn section is doing a jazz, it's like all these big band jazz licks.
Talking about your troubles and you never learn.
That would never go with a song like that. But Spinning Wheel, that. A rock and roll drummer at that moment would have gone one. That's what they would play. But if you're listening to Philly Joe Jones your whole life, And Elvin Jones and Tony Williams, you just don't go there. So I'm still a jazz drummer, and it's like da 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 da. Go, that's like a typical jazz fill. And I remember Randy Brecker, who was no longer in the band, coming to the studio to hear some of the things we were doing, and we played Spinning Wheel. And I remember when that fill came up, he looked at me like, "You got to be kidding! A rock song, you play that?" And I went, "I don't know any better, you know." So we do that. We add all that stuff. And in the middle, there is no warning. It just breaks into a jazz trumpet solo. With the band, which is a big band, you know, the bebop thing. And then again, musically, the worst thing you could do is just boom, 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 bim. And the ending, I mix with Roy Halley. On one 8-track machine, I mixed the recorders, tambourine, the guys are sitting around playing. I'm not even sure why we really did that. But I do know that we played it all the way out, and then I started editing the mix into the other mix, into the other, and then a fade with both at the same time. And Roy was going, "You can't edit that." I said, "Yeah, of course it'll work." So let's do da 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 da, and then boom 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 boom, and it fades out. Halligan going, "That wasn't very good," and they were laughing because it was terrible. It was silly.
That wasn't too good.
Tell me about that. That's just something that you said, and you guys decided to keep it.
I kept in. No. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens when you record. And it's a choice if you, and in the mix, I left it in because it wasn't very good. And it was, I mean, they were playing recorders and they were playing, you know, out of tune. And it was just it sounded like a bunch of children, like playing this piece of music. And I put it in because it had a circus feel. And when that becomes a hit, it's like the last thing. And there's a part of me going, I don't want to play that every night. No, it can't be a hit.
Well, number 2 smash, yeah.
The whole thing was a miracle.
There are, you know, about 20 or 30 times in your life, if you're lucky, where you hear a song and it just kind of shakes you out of existence for a minute.
I've had that when I'm driving and I hear, "I'm not in love." I just pulled over and went home.
Yeah.
What a record. Voices. I'm trying to figure out, wow, that's amazing.
But I remember distinctly being in my dad's pickup. My dad, you know, of course, listened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears and the Beatles and Stones and everything. I grew up on that. But I remember when I heard "What Goes Up," you know, and I'm just like, wow.
Hey, are you looking for a gig?
No.
What goes up?
But it was just amazing. It was like, I think I was like 4 years old, 5 years old. And I remember saying, "Dad, who sings this?" And he said, "Oh, this is Blood, Sweat, and Tears." And I'd heard that saying before, you know, because my dad would say, "I put so many blood, sweat, and tears into this," you know. And so that was a band name that would stick with you as a kid.
That was Al. You know, it's funny. Al Cooper was such a wonderful hustler that he had convinced everyone that he had a band and it was on fire, and record companies got interested. He did it all himself. Some promoter at the Village Theater, which became the Fillmore East, was looking for an opening act for the James Cotton Blues Band. And Al was one of those guys who would talk to writers, talk to promoters. He just hung out. And, you know, that kind of interaction really benefited his whole career. So he was asked, you know, "Have you got a name for the band?" You know, and Al, like all of us at the time, had albums all over the floor. I mean, they would take over the room where they'd pile up and you almost had no room to walk. And while he's talking to the promoter, the guy says, "Do you have a name?" And he looks down and there's a Johnny Cash album called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And it's at his feet. And he goes, "Yeah, Blood, Sweat, and Tears." Now, Al gets pissed off that I tell this story. Now, first of all, I didn't own a Johnny Cash album. When I was growing up, I would never have known about that album. That's first. Secondly, he told me this. And third, it takes away from his narrative, which is more colorful. His version is, I'm playing with B.B. King in the middle of the night, and I'm jamming with him, and my hands are bleeding, and I'm sweating, and I'm playing the blues, and I'm crying, and that's how it got its name. And I'm thinking, what? It's an album cover. What are you talking about? But he gets angry because that, for him, sounds better than the reality of it was a Johnny Cash album.
Well, it appropriately won in the category of the best instrumental arrangement.
Yeah.
With Fred Lipsius as the key architect behind that. I read an article a few years back that I remember where it was saying that there were 3 or 4 songs where the sales of certain instruments went through the roof after it became a hit. Let's talk about that vocal, though. David Clayton Thomas.
You talk about any vocal that he sings.
And show you the colors that are.
There's also been a lot of covers of this as well. Sammy Davis Jr.
Painted pony on the spinning wheel ride.
Benny Goodman. That's a great, cool cover.
What's that, Peggy Lee?
Yeah, Peggy Lee had a hit with it.
What goes up must come down.
Shirley Bassey.
Spinning wheel, gotta go round. Talking about you.
James Brown. Used as a cue on the first ever episode of Wheel of Fortune. I don't know if you knew that.
Players are up on the board. Marilyn's got $950 for that squash blossom necklace, but she's got to solve a puzzle.
Larry Sanders Show.
Larry Sanders Show. Hank.
What goes up must.
That was the greatest.
Indian Summer Where the Truth Lies. And Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Elvis and Nixon.
A painted pony, let the spinning wheel spin.
And The Sopranos, too.
Ride the painted pony, let the spinning wheel glide. Huh?
This is one of those songs that takes you right back to that moment. Top 10 all-time covered songs by school bands ever.
Marching bands? Forget about it. Oh, absolutely.
Right. It just is such a great showcase for what Blood, Sweat, and Tears is all about.
Well, that was the great thing, again, that I'm proud of about Blood, Sweat, and Tears, is that musicians in school, their teachers would bring in the album saying, check this out. And they'd all of a sudden, it would challenge them to play better because there weren't easy parts.
Give us a little version of what the impetus behind the film, peak of the band's popularity, the dawn of the 70s.
What had happened is a friend of mine, Rupert Perry, he's retired, but he was a wonderful executive at EMI Capital. And he said, man, I loved your band. I was a real fan. And it's like, what happened? I said, well, actually, there's kind of a story behind it. Our singer was Canadian. We were talking out against the war. Some right-wing congressman or something happened where the government took away his green card. And with the #1 record, we can't play in America anymore. We're done. So all of a sudden, the State Department appears. It may have been our manager de jour's idea, or it may have been the State Department knowing that they had something dangling. And they said, if you do this tour behind the Iron Curtain to kind of, be our little, our gift to these 3 countries, Yugoslavia and Romania and Poland, then we'll try and get you back the green card with a wink. And we knew if we told anyone why we were doing this, they would take the green card away again. So we couldn't say anything. Now understand, the extreme left is thinking they're doing a State Department sponsored tour. They're tools of the government. We go over there, we see it in front of our face, and we see what communism is. And we come back and say, it's screwed up here. We've got a problem with Nixon. We have a problem with this war in Vietnam. No doubt about that. But communism is not the answer. It won't work here. It's the opposite of anything we would ever want or need in this country. So Lee Hoffman goes, how dare you say that? Because his business was protesting and being seen on camera and getting paid for speaking. So the extreme left turned on a band, and culturally that was our fan base. And they pick it. There's so much in this movie. It really is something. But that's what happened. I told them, believe it or not, there was a film crew, independent film company, came on that Eastern European tour with us because I thought it would make a great movie of us playing, of this hit band playing Beyond the Iron Curtain. So they shoot these shows, and what happens is you see communism, you see these events again in the movie, you see what happens, and the government doesn't want it out either. So and now we're getting killed by everybody. My friend Rupert tells a friend of his saying, this story's unbelievable. And there's footage. He has a friend that ran Thorn EMI. His name is Gary Dartnell. And Gary goes to Warner's and Paramount. And this is just before COVID. And he's looking for the film. It doesn't exist. Sorry, there's no film. Now I'm speaking to John Scheinfeld, who just did Chasing Train about John Coltrane, a wonderful documentary. And he's a great guy. And we're having, I think, dinner. And he says, I was a real fan of your band. What the hell happened? And I went, well, and he goes, oh my God, where's the film? And I went, I have no idea. So in the middle of COVID, he does his investigative work. And because of the Freedom of Information Act, finds out what the government's trying to do with us, with their thinking, shots of what was going on with the left against us. And John finds a woman who works at MGM in the middle of COVID, has a loose leaf. It's not in her computer, but in a loose leaf, in a binder, she sees that there are 2 copies of a 52-minute Blood, Sweat, and Tears film. All the other footage, 65 hours were shot and somehow disappeared, which I think the government trashed. But this one thing was left. And so John said, I gotta find it. He finds it. Hence, what the hell happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
So you have to see this amazing documentary. It has footage shot during the Iron Curtain tour. It was thought to be lost. Also, present-day interviews with the band members and historians, as well as the unsealing of government records. Like I said, it's called What the Hell Happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and is coming out soon. We'll link to it, and we'll let you know as we come closer to that. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about this all-time 60s masterpiece. What are your memories of Blood, Sweat, and Tears? What other 60s songs should we decipher on here? What do you think about this crazy story? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We would love to have you. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.